The man who entered Robben Island prison in 1964 was angry, militant, ready for war. The man who walked out in 1990 was calm, wise, ready for peace. What happened in those 27 years didn't just change Nelson Mandela. It changed the entire course of South African history. This is the story of how prison became the greatest university in the world. June 12, 1964, Pretoria, South Africa. The courtroom is packed. Nelson Mandela stands before the judge, knowing his fate is already sealed. He's been found guilty of sabotage and conspiracy to overthrow the government. The judge speaks. Life imprisonment. Mandela is 46 years old. He's a lawyer, a freedom fighter, a man who believed he could change South Africa through armed resistance. Now, that life is over. Within hours, he's on a boat to Robben Island, a maximum security prison, 7 miles off the coast of Cape Town. It's a place designed to break men's spirits. Political prisoners are sent there to disappear, to be forgotten by the world. The island is harsh, unforgiving. Winter temperatures drop near freezing. Summer heat is brutal. The prison is surrounded by rough seas and great white sharks. Escape is impossible. Mandela is given prisoner number 46664. He's assigned to a cell that's 8 feet by 7 feet, a straw mat on the floor, a bucket for a toilet, one small window, too high to see through. For the first few years, he's allowed one visitor every 6 months, one letter every 6 months. The outside world begins to forget about Nelson Mandela. But Mandela doesn't forget about the outside world. Most prisoners in his situation would do one of two things: break down completely, or spend every waking moment planning revenge. Mandela chooses a third path. He decides to use these years not as punishment, but as preparation. The daily routine is designed to crush the human spirit. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., prisoners are awakened by guards banging on cell doors. Breakfast is thin porridge and coffee that tastes like water. Then comes the work. For 13 years, Mandela is forced to work in the lime quarry. 8 hours a day, breaking rocks under the scorching African sun. The lime dust burns his eyes and throat. The work is backbreaking, meaningless, designed only to humiliate. But Mandela sees opportunity where others see only suffering. During the long hours in the quarry, he begins talking to other prisoners, not just complaining about their conditions, but discussing ideas, philosophy, history, politics, the future of South Africa. The quarry becomes a classroom. The prisoners become students and teachers to each other. Mandela starts learning Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors. Other prisoners think he's crazy. Why learn the language of the people who put us here? Mandela's answer is simple. To defeat your enemy, you must understand your enemy. He doesn't just learn the language. He studies Afrikaner history, their culture, their fears. He reads their poetry, their literature. He begins to understand that the white minority isn't just evil. They're afraid. Afraid of losing their identity, their security, their place in Africa. This understanding will later become the key to South Africa's peaceful transition. But the learning doesn't stop there. Mandela turns his cell into a library. He reads everything he can get his hands on: history, philosophy, literature, law. He studies the American Civil War, the French Revolution, the independence movements of India and Ghana. He reads about other leaders who faced impossible odds: Gandhi, Churchill, Lincoln. He learns from their successes and their failures. The guards try to stop this education. They confiscate books, limit reading time, punish prisoners for studying. But Mandela and his fellow prisoners find ways around every restriction. They hide books in the garden. They write notes on toilet paper. they create a secret university within the prison walls. By the 1970s, something extraordinary is happening on Robben Island. The prison that was designed to break political prisoners has become the most important university in South Africa. Mandela isn't just a student anymore. He's become the unofficial chancellor. Younger prisoners seek him out for advice. He teaches them history, law, strategy. He helps them understand that their struggle isn't just about anger, it's about building a better future. But the real test comes in the 1980s, when the South African government begins secret negotiations. They want to know if Mandela is willing to renounce violence in exchange for his freedom. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for. After more than 20 years in prison, Mandela has a chance to walk free. All he has to do is say the words the government wants to hear. His response shocks everyone. I will not renounce violence while the government continues to use violence against my people. He chooses to stay in prison rather than compromise his principles. But something else is happening during these negotiations. Mandela realizes that his years of study, his understanding of Afrikaner culture, his ability to speak their language, all of this has prepared him for something bigger than just his own freedom. He's being prepared to lead not just black South Africans, but all South Africans. The government officials who come to negotiate with him are surprised. They expect to find a bitter, broken man. Instead, they find someone who understands their concerns, speaks their language, and offers them something they never expected. A path to peace. February 11th, 1990. After 27 years, 6 months, and 6 days, Nelson Mandela walks out of Victor Verster prison. The world is watching. Millions of people have gathered to see this moment. But the man who emerges is not the same man who entered prison in 1964. The angry young revolutionary has become something much more powerful, a statesman. His first speech as a free man sets the tone for everything that follows. Instead of calling for revenge against his oppressors, he calls for reconciliation. Instead of promising to destroy the old South Africa, he promises to build a new one that includes everyone. The crowd is confused. They expected fire and brimstone. They expected calls for revolution. Instead, they get something they never imagined: wisdom. Over the next 4 years, Mandela leads negotiations that will transform South Africa from an apartheid state into a democracy. The process is difficult, sometimes violent, always uncertain, but Mandela's 27 years of preparation pay off. His understanding of Afrikaner culture helps him negotiate with white leaders. His study of other independence movements helps him avoid the mistakes that led to civil wars in other African countries. Most importantly, his years of learning to control his own anger help him control the anger of an entire nation. In 1994, Nelson Mandela becomes the first black president of South Africa. The transition happens peacefully, defying every prediction of civil war and racial violence. But the real transformation isn't political, it's personal. Mandela invites his former prison guards to his presidential inauguration. He has tea with the widow of the architect of apartheid. He learns the names of the security police who tortured his friends. This isn't weakness. This is the ultimate strength, the ability to transform enemies into allies. The world watches in amazement as South Africa becomes a symbol of reconciliation rather than revenge. Other countries facing similar divisions look to the South African model for inspiration. Mandela's 27 years in prison become the foundation for one of the most remarkable peaceful transitions in human history. But perhaps the most important transformation is in how the world understands suffering. Mandela proves that time spent in darkness doesn't have to be time wasted. It can be time invested in becoming the person the world needs you to be. So let me ask you something. What is your Robin Island? What is the difficult situation you're facing right now? What is the challenge that feels like a prison sentence? What is the hardship that seems like nothing but wasted time? Nelson Mandela could have spent 27 years counting the days, planning revenge, letting bitterness consume him. Instead, he chose to use those years as preparation for greatness. He turned his cell into a classroom. He turned his enemies into teachers. He turned his suffering into strength. The lesson is this: your greatest setbacks can become your greatest setups, but only if you choose to learn instead of just endure. Every difficult period in your life is a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. You can waste the time, or you can invest it in becoming the person you need to be for what's coming next. Think about it. If Mandela had been released after just a few years, he would have been the same angry young man who went in. He wouldn't have had the wisdom to lead a peaceful transition. He wouldn't have understood his enemies well enough to make them his allies. Those 27 years weren't just punishment. They were preparation. Your difficult times aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities. Opportunities to learn, to grow, to develop the strength and wisdom you'll need for your next chapter. The question isn't whether you'll face hardship. The question is what you'll do with it. Will you let it make you bitter, or will you let it make you better? Will you count the days, or will you make the days count? Look around you. The world is full of people who are facing their own Robin Islands. They need to see that it's possible to transform suffering into strength. They need to see that setbacks can become setups. You don't need perfect circumstances to prepare for greatness. You just need to choose learning over lamenting, growth over grievance, preparation over self-pity. Remember, the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. Your fire might be burning right now, but if you choose to learn instead of just endure, you might discover that your greatest trial is actually your greatest training. 27 years from now, you might look back and realize that your darkest period was actually when you became your strongest self. One story, one lesson. Stay strong,